What's up, fight fans from all around the world? You have tuned into the War Room, and it is Saturday on this recording, Saturday, November 18th. And I have to tell you, after reading Eddie's latest piece on Patreon about Saudi Arabia taking over the heavyweight department, the heavyweight division, Eddie, I do believe you almost sound giddy in that article, okay? That you are impressed with the heavyweight lineup of Anthony Joshua versus Otto Wallen, Deontay Wilder versus Joshua Parker, Daniel Dubois versus Jarrell Miller, Frank Sanchez versus Junior Fa, Philippe Hergovich versus Mark Demori, and I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the last bout, the names of the last bout. But Eddie, are you giddy about this bout happening, these bouts happening on December 23rd in Saudi Arabia?
Well, I wouldn't call myself giddy, but I think that we have to understand the significance of this card, and particularly in the context that the heavyweight division, very rightly so, has been skewered left and right, not just in the boxing community, but in the whole world, in the mainstream media. The Economist magazine recently had an article about it, of all places, for the best not fighting the best, for this inactivity of the top fighters, for it just completely grinding to a halt. Fighters, it's been pointed out that this year of 2023, there will have been only one fight for a heavyweight belt of any of the heavyweight belts. And that was when Usyk fought Dubois in August. That was his only fight for that belt. And Fury had his one fight with Ngannou, the MMA fighter, which is a non-title fight. And even with all these fights coming up on December 23rd, none of them are up for major titles. And it was
none of the heavyweights, because there are
two among the heavyweights. I'm just talking about the heavyweights. Yeah, you had Dmitry Bivol, the light heavyweight. Many people view him as being the top light heavyweight in the world. And you also had Jai Opataya. Many people view him as the top cruiserweight in the world. And they will both be on this card. But for the heavyweights, all of a sudden, Saudi Arabia decided they're going to take over the whole division. They basically saw this thing as dying. And this is a brand. Heavyweight boxing used to be the linchpin of all boxing and almost all sports. The heavyweight champion of the world was the most prestigious individual title in sports. And now nobody was fighting for it. And yet nobody knew what was happening with these fighters. So Saudi Arabia, as we've been talking a lot, has decided with his Vision 2030, they have to diversify the economy away from dependency on petroleum exports for a lot of reasons, because in several decades, that's going to run out. The countries they export to are decreasing their use of fossil fuels, and countries like the United States are becoming more independent in terms of oil production. So all these factors has said to their leadership, we got to change something or we're going to be out of business in a couple of decades, which, for leadership there that's in their 30s there, that's something they absolutely have to plan for. And they have a very young population. So they're starting to use this money in their public investment fund, which is one of the largest sovereign wealth funds in the world, to increase their tourism sector, bring in sports and entertainment, all sorts of different sports, car racing, football, all these different. There's even a baseball program starting to get started there. Golf, which has been very controversial, and they're investing in all sorts of businesses around the world. and they're increasing their tourism and their sports and entertainment sector in the country, building all these structures. They have their Riyadh season events, which started a couple of years ago. It was slowed down, of course, with the pandemic in terms of getting tourists coming there. Now that's back up in high gear. And they've deemed boxing is one of the key attractions for their Riyadh season events. This is the Riyadh season, if you look it up, is a several months long festival where they have bringing chefs from around the world and top rated restaurants, and they have exhibits like Disney Castle and the World of Barbie and a zoo, WWE. They have a Mike Tyson boxing club, all sorts of things across the board. And a lot of things, as I said, aimed at children and families. They have plays, all these different things. And boxing is one of the featured events that they have at this, and they want to get top level names, not just anybody in there. And they've had their junk fights also in the past. Early this year, they had Jake Paul and Tommy Fury and some other stuff like that. But they had Fury and Ngannou, which was a farce for different reasons than we expected it to be. And they said, all right, look, we're going to go straight to the top level fights that nobody can criticize. And so they wanted to have December 23rd, Usyk versus Fury, but Fury did not come out well with the fight, as we know, with Ngannou, and he was cut, and he had a black eye, and that they had to delay that. It would have been less than 2 months between the two fights. So that's not going to be February 17th. And that will be the fight that people have been talking about for years. For the first time in a quarter of a century, that will crown an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. That's if nothing goes wrong, if nobody pulls out. And that will be towards the end of Riyadh season. And this is a fight everybody's been talking about for years and years and years, to have an undisputed heavyweight champion, because Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, whatever order you view them in, are virtually universally accepted as the top two heavyweights in the world. Who's better? You can debate it, but the reality is going to be seen when they step in the ring and they stop all the talking and the nonsense. The rest of this card on December 23rd, as I wrote, and I've read a lot of commentary and heard a zillion and one interviews on this, which have kind of missed the point. These 6 heavyweight fights involving mainly high-profile fighters is the closest thing that heavyweight boxing has had to a legitimate tournament or playoff that I can ever remember. There have been tournaments, but they haven't been on this level, because they have the number. If you have Fury and Usyk is 1 and 2, the number 3 and 4 on everybody's list are Joshua and Wilder. They're not fighting each other, but they're fighting significant opposition. Anthony Joshua, the former unified champion, 2 times, is fighting Otto Wallen, who is on the fringe of a number of top 10 lists, who gave Fury a difficult fight a couple of years ago. That was his only loss. He just had a fight with Gassiev. He's much bigger than him. I don't think Wallen looked that impressive. I certainly favor Joshua in this fight, but Wallen is a legitimate opponent if you're getting top-level fighters together. Deontay Wilder's fighting Joseph Parker, former WBO champion, who's been fading recently, even though he's younger than a lot of the established name heavyweights that's out there. But Wilder has been inactive. He fought one round in the last 2 years when he knocked out Robert Helenius. And how has that all affected Wilder, who's 38 years old? So again, I'd favor Wilder to knock out Parker, but anything can happen in these fights. And the other fights, some are more competitive than others, and some have more question marks than others, which is what you want before a fight. You don't want to go in and say, "Oh, this is going to be a slaughter." Like I think Philip Hrgovic and Mark Demori is a really one-sided fight. Demori lost several years ago early on to David Haye, and he's won a bunch of fights, but not against top opposition. That's kind of a gimme fight. And Hrgovic is the IBF mandatory. He's one of the top 10 fighters. Frank Sanchez, undefeated fighter with the PBC, is listed on this card, although he didn't make it to the press conference. It's unclear if it was just a travel problem. They couldn't arrange it because all this stuff was put together in a week or so against Junior Fa. He should easily win that fight. But there are two fights with a lot of question marks. One is Daniel Dubois, who, as I said, lost earlier this year to Usyk, against returning to a major fight, Jarrell Big Baby Miller, who infamously was taken off his 2019 fight with Joshua after testing positive for multiple PEDs, and again later. He's been out of action against top fighters. He's gotten some wins on the comeback trail against lower-ranked fighters. Now he's going up against Dubois, who's a big puncher but has a lot of questions. And there's a question about his ring IQ and his heart and things like that. But it's a test for Miller. And Miller's being inactive. Miller comes in very heavy and is a big and very rude trash talker. But that's an interesting fight. That's a fight you can make a case for either guy. And then you have the two fighters lesser known to most people. Arslanbek Makhmudov versus Ajit Kabayel. These guys are both in their 30s. They're not as well known. Makhmudov is a big puncher, is undefeated, but he's about 34 years old. He's a Russian, but he's now living in Canada, I think in the Montreal area, for many, many years. And this is his time. Is this guy for real, or is he just another big, strong guy? And Kabayel is the EBU European champion. He's undefeated, but again, he hasn't faced top opposition. So how good is this guy? We're gonna find out. That makes it an interesting fight. And taken together, when you add these other fights that are going to be on this card, with Jai Opataya, who's just coming into his own, and Dimitri Bivol on this card, you don't see this many top-level fighters on one card all at the same time. I can't think of any card that's like this. Now, the reason, of course, is that Saudi Arabia is overpaying. They're loading up this card because this is an investment. They're not going to make money on this card directly. They're going to lose money, but they're going to set themselves up as the place to be for heavyweight boxing. No more New York, no more London, no more Las Vegas. They don't want to pay the money to get these fighters in the ring. Fury and Usyk wanted a ton of money to fight each other, and they delayed and delayed and delayed. So now Saudi Arabia just came in, and within a few days, instead of the months of negotiations and people going on the internet and insulting each other and calling each other names, privately, they got them together and said, here's the money. And they all accepted it. And they didn't, and they set this thing up.
Wow.
Now, again, it's boxing. Anything can happen. I'd be surprised if all these fights take place as announced, but still, it's an amazing card. Bivol going to be fighting Lyndon Arthur. Everybody wants to see Bivol against Beterbiev. I think Bivol will be a huge favorite in it. And Jayo Pataya will be facing a fighter lesser known named Ellis Zorro. He said he wanted to fight Bradis again, but they couldn't get that done. Remember, these things were negotiated within a week to 10 days, which is an incredibly short period of time. And there are other.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add, not only that, but they were with multiple promotional companies,
Right,
which never
12
happens.
promoters.
Salida, Wasserman, Queensberry. I mean, these are people that never play in the same
SES from Germany.
Yeah, exactly.
And Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren were both at the announcement for this, and they said this is the first time they've ever met in person. Yeah. They snipe at each other on the internet, but they've never met it. They're big rivals, big rival promoters, and so they're working together on this. And as you said, Dimitri Salida's in there, all these different promoters. And I don't know what the deal is with the PBC, technically not promoters, but Wilder had been with the PBC, and Frank Sanchez, as far as I know, is still with the PBC. So they're involved with this. This is absolutely unprecedented. And of course, Saudi Arabia is doing it for their own reasons, to develop themselves. But what they've become is the center, the world capital of heavyweight boxing, largely by abdication, because all the nonsense that's gone on has basically destroyed it. And they don't have every top heavyweight on their show on the December 23rd card. But remember, when Fury fights Usyk on February 17th of next year, there's bound to be an undercard. So, for example, Martin Piccoli, who's an up-and-coming fighter, has some good wins over Tony Yoka and Carlos Takam. He fought on the October 28th Fury Ngannou undercard, so maybe he'll come back in February. And the WBO interim champ, Zhang Zhilei, with his big wins over Joe Joyce, isn't on this card, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up fighting there as well. So this opens up a million different things, because what's going to happen, Fury will fight Usyk, assuming it's not a draw, assuming nobody pulls out and isn't delayed forever and ever. Somebody will win and become undisputed champion. Then the stripping will start from the sanctioning bodies, probably first with the IBF, because there'll be a rematch clause in Fury versus Usyk. And if there's even whether or not they have the rematch, if there's that clause, they start stripping people. They already did this at welterweight with Terence Crawford. So that's going to mean that Hrgović, who presumably is going to win on December 23rd, will fight somebody for the IBF championship. Now, he could fight, assuming Joshua gets by Wallen, which is not a gimme. He could fight Joshua because Joshua was highly ranked in the IBF, or Joshua could fight Wilder again, assuming Wilder beats Parker, which would be an absolutely huge fight. Although I would doubt that would take place that soon in February. So it will be, if they want to have it in Saudi Arabia, Riyadh season ends a couple of weeks after. So, and then they have Ramadan coming up. Then in the summer, it gets real hot and they're not going to have as many tourists. So you're talking about coming back in the fall, which is possible. And they might want to have other fights before then. But it opens all of this up, and you have all the different sanctioning bodies involved. But if there's a winner in Fury versus Usyk, and the sanctioning bodies strip somebody, nobody will give a damn. That fighter will be, again, assuming it's not one of these wacko decisions we see in boxing, that fighter will be recognized as the best heavyweight in the world, period, regardless of the belts. And Fury has said he's going to give up some of these belts if he wins anyway. And so you just have the amount of belts in this card. I just listed some of these things. Joshua's a former two-time unified champ. Wilder's former WBC champ, Parker the former WBO champ, Dubois the former, quote, regular WBA champ, Caballel the current EBU European champion, and that's a title that means something. Hrgovic is the IBF #1, and Miller, Sanchez, Hrgovic, Makhmudov, and Caballel are at this point all undefeated. It's just an incredible lineup. So this is something to look forward to for a change in boxing. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, but it'll be on pay-per-view, and I'm not watching that. So we'll be catching it on YouTube.
Most likely in the US, it'll be on pay-per-view with this stacked card.
Right.
And particularly with Joshua and Wilder on the top. But they haven't announced any of the TV deals anywhere at this point.
That's probably because they don't have any.
Yeah, I don't think it's really solidified yet. Although what's interesting is the box rec shows the commission as the British Boxing Board of Control, which, if that holds, is, I think, also very interesting, because that would be a first, as far as I recall.
No, they did it on the October 28th.
Oh, they did? I thought it was the Saudi.
There's no Saudi Boxing Commission. There's the Middle East
but that's what
Professional
they've
Boxing
done
Commission that's based in Dubai.
Right, but and I think that's what they did in the past, so that's interesting. I missed that BBFC was the controlling interest for the 20.
Right, but you have a bunch of different people doing this. You have Top Rank in Queensberry with Fury, and you have Turki Al-Sheikh representing Saudi Arabia, who's a longtime advisor to Mohammed bin Salman, the crown prince and de facto ruler of the monarchy there. And he's the head of the General Entertainment Authority and Riyadh season. And the Washington Post quoted an article from a couple of years ago from the late Jamal Khashoggi, calling him one of the very thuggish advisors to MBS. So they've changed the governance. They've changed a lot since this is no longer Skill Challenge Entertainment or Skill Challenge Promotions. That's been kind of sidelined, and it's unclear what happened to them, except they're not running the show. It's being run directly at the top by Turki Al-Sheikh. And for the last show, they brought in the British Boxing Board of Control, and apparently they're going to do it again for this show based on what you said, but they haven't even announced that officially.
No, as I said, that's the only, I'm literally reading it on BoxRec. But
you can't always go BoxRec.
That's what that's saying, but I'm telling you what I'm seeing is on BoxRec.
Right.
I have no idea if that's actually definitive, but that's the only information there. And in particular, there's no information on how it will be broadcast anywhere. I mean, given, Top Rank is with just for the American market. You got Top Rank with ESPN, you got Eddie Hearn with DAZN. Who knows who's going to pick that up for the American market?
Well, let's just see how this December 23rd card pans out, because I'm pretty sure a couple of those bouts will fall out. But let's move on to Melissa. Let's talk women's boxing, because Katie Taylor is getting in the ring. All right.
Katie Taylor and Chantelle Cameron, who, defeated Katie Taylor at the big homecoming on May 20th of 2023, defeated her by split decision at super light, which allowed Katie Taylor to maintain her undisputed lightweight titles with her loss against Cameron. It was a split decision. There are those that felt Cameron had the win outright. And now they're going to do it again, same place, the 3 Arena in Dublin. As distinct from their first meeting, which, as I said, was associated with Katie Taylor's first fight as a professional in Ireland, and all of the attention just to that, Katie Taylor coming home, and then all of the attention on, the reasons why she had never been able to fight because of the Kinahan gang stuff and the ongoing criminality and, just literal murders of people in boxing as a result of that gang war. It was a very big deal. And this time around, there's barely a peep. It's real quiet in terms of certainly how the media permeates to our side of the pond.
Right.
It's certainly exciting in Ireland, but it does not have any of the kind of huge marketing push that we saw with the first Taylor Chantelle Cameron fight, which anyway had its complexities because Taylor was originally supposed to fight Amanda Serrano. Serrano dropped out. And then on the internet, through a series of tweets, Chantelle Cameron and Katie offered herself as an opponent, and Katie Taylor said sure, and they made that happen.
Let's go. Right.
It was a let's go. So now, they're getting ready to fight. Chantelle Cameron is a really superb fighter. She's not an Olympian, but she had a very excellent amateur career, and is now 18-0. And really a force to be reckoned with. She's no slouch in the ring. And Katie Taylor, though, is just finishing up a really quiet camp where very little has come out from her other than some statements on 3-minute versus 2-minute round fights, of which she essentially is in support of 2-minute round fights.
They're fighting at 2 minutes, right?
They're fighting at 2 minutes because it's for all the belts.
Right.
So it has to be because of WBC, and it's in Ireland, and the whole process of trying to get that to be 3 minutes is more than they're willing to take on. She's also recently opined that the hardest puncher she ever faced was Amanda Serrano, not Chantelle Cameron. So we'll see what that really comes out to.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's, hey, I'm going to psych you out, Chantelle, you got nothing, you're a powder puff. But, there are other opponents of Amanda Serrano that have said the same thing. I mean, parenthetically, Heather Hardy, getting ready for her fight this summer, exclusively sparred with Southpaw men, because as she said, I got to get used to getting hit that hard.
Right.
So we'll see. I mean, it's an exciting matchup for women's boxing. It's, I guess the question in terms of Katie Taylor is, do you have it anymore, or are you past your prime?
The time to retire.
Are you still able to? Should you, are you are you really on the back end of your career, and is it time to hang it up and say, okay, see ya? Right. Or is there more to do? I mean, look, she only suffered one loss as a pro against Chantelle Cameron, but those are the kinds of questions that she'll be facing when she comes in. She's still doing it in Chantelle Cameron's wheelhouse, which is super light. even though Taylor did win a title at super light when she fought Christina Linadatu. This will be only her third fight at super light as a professional. And Chantelle Cameron's a bigger person, and she does have a big punch, and she's good as an outside fighter and good as an inside fighter. So in that sense, those are the kinds of questions that are going to be facing Taylor. And in terms of Cameron, the pressure is on her to win again, because then it propels her potentially into that top three in terms of the pound for pound vision of women in boxing.
Right.
Because right now you've got Shields, Taylor, and Serrano. And if Taylor's knocked out, that really pushes Cameron to a really next level for her career. So in terms of for the things that she can accomplish in the sport and her own growth, she certainly wants to come away with a win, but she also wants to show definitively, hey, I knocked out the number one fighter in the world. I've done it twice. Right. There's no question anymore of who I am and what my place is in the sport. And she has more opportunity ahead of her. Even without a win, she has opportunity. But if she's able to do it again and really definitively knock Taylor off her throne, that really gives her a tremendous leg up in the sport, and her in terms of legacy in the annals of the sport itself. Because not only is she an undisputed fighter, one of very few, but having knocked off now two undisputed fighters, because she defeated Jessica McCaskill as well when she was undisputed at welter. And then to really definitively beat Taylor, it really solidifies her place in the sport as legacy, as
future
getting
Hall
into
of
the
Famer,
Hall of Fame.
Right?
On the first ballot. Look, she's a future Hall of Famer anyway, but it solidifies that first ballot, all of those kinds of things. And it also brings her to the opportunity to earn a level of an elite level, and also an opportunity to earn at a very high level.
Right.
Which, as you know, for women is an extraordinary struggle, and that, 7-figure club is very meager.
Hard to get into.
I mean, look, before this era, there had only ever been Regina Halmich from Germany in the aughts. And then after that, it was Katie Taylor, Serrano, Shields.
Christy, Christy never made it to that $1 million club?
No.
Wow.
Nope. There was supposed to be a fight with Lucia Riker, and then she had an injury in her foot, and that never happened. That was right around the time of $1 Million Baby, the film $1 Million Baby.
Right.
Lucia Riker actually was in the film and so on.
Yeah.
But
one
no,
of my friends was
never
in that
made
film.
it. The only one that ever made it was Regina Halmich in Germany.
And it's also interesting that there were conspiracy theories about the Lucia Riker fight with being canceled. I mean, I saw a picture from a friend of Lucia Riker. Lucia Riker was sitting in a wheelchair with a cast on her leg. She was injured, but the ticket sales were poor for that fight, because I think Aaron was involved and he really wasn't behind the fight. And so when she recovered, they never had the fight afterwards, after the injury was healed. And that, I don't know if Lucia ever fought again.
No, she didn't. Not as no. And she had other health issues that occurred not too long after.
Yeah, she had been around a long time between the kickboxing and the boxing.
Yeah, she had other issues. And, the thing with women and, look, men in boxing, just boxing period is, does extraordinary damage over time. And
some injuries you never recover from.
Yeah, and Christy Martin has had them, and so has Lucia Riker. Devastating injury. I mean, things that accumulated in boxing that then gave them other problems later on that you just never recover from. It's just life.
Exactly.
So Lucia Riker was certainly in that position.
On the Katie Taylor rematch, in a way, I'm a little surprised that she took the immediate rematch at 140. I don't know if she has trouble making 135 anymore, but she's going to have to fight a completely different fight if she wants to win this fight, because the judges scored it a split decision. When I watched that fight, it was not a close fight. It really could have been a 7-3 or so for Cameron, and that includes Taylor winning 2 of the last 3 rounds because Cameron did fade at the end of the fight. And Cameron came right out, dominated the fight early on. If Taylor wants to win, and also she's gonna have the benefit of the doubt because it's in Dublin. The fans will be with her against the British fighter Cameron, all of that stuff. If she wants to win, she's going to have to really come out smoking instead of really a very lackluster performance until the last few rounds. And I don't know what she can do differently in this fight, because Cameron's going in there. There were questions beforehand. Can't Cameron beat her? What will happen again with the hometown judges and all that? And Cameron ended up winning the fight. Now Cameron knows she can beat her. She's going to be more confident, and there's going to be a little more doubt in Katie Taylor's mind. So she's going to have to push all that stuff to the side. But I don't know physically that she has the tools. Like Melissa said, Cameron's just a bigger fighter. There's a reason that there are weight classes. And I don't know what she could do that different. Again, we'll find out. People have good days and bad days. You got to factor all that in. But I certainly wouldn't be surprised if Cameron wins even more decisively this time. She looks like a very polished fighter, and was kind of below the radar before, wasn't getting, again, the glamour attention of as you said, Shields and Serrano and Taylor. But I think based on the last fight, she certainly belongs in that group, and I think she has to be a big favorite in this fight. But again, we'll see what happens when they get in the ring.
That's right.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Eddie. I agree. Cameron comes in with a lot of sort of up. It's really her fight to lose in one sense. And does Taylor have the magic toolbox? Look, sometimes she's able to if she can stay in and out, which is when she's at her using that strength, and if she maintains really quick hands and uses her feet in that way, she has some opportunity. But if she allows Cameron to bait her inside, she loses.
Yeah, there was a very interesting quote after the first fight where Cameron and her head trainer Jamie Moore were talking about their strategy. They called it ambush mode. And Cameron said, obviously I knew I couldn't box Katie. She's a better boxer than me. She can box my ears off, but she can't fight like me. And that proved to be decisive in the fight.
Yep.
So we'll see. We'll see if anything's different this time. I'm leaning to Cameron winning again, but again, let's see what happens.
She better go in there and impose her will, like my coach Jesse Reed used to say, impose your will.
Right. There's one other female fight on the card, Sky Nicholson, who's 8-0, who's the WBC interim feather title holder. She's fighting Lucy Wildheart. I'm not a big Sky Nicholson fan, but we'll see what she can do. Lucy Wildheart is 10-2. She's from Sweden. She, in her last outing, she lost very decisively to Michaela Mayer, and I think at 135. So she's coming down considerably to fight Nicholson. So I guess they're, Eddie Hearn and company are figuring this is some kind of gimme fight for Nicholson, but we'll see what happens. But as I said, there's just the two female bouts on the card. The rest are kind of local fighter. Patty Donovan fighting Danny Ball. Don't have a lot of fighters I've never
What's
heard
the fight date for that?
That is Saturday, November 25th.
Okay, it's coming up next week.
It'll in next Saturday. Yeah, this coming Saturday. It'll be shown in the USA on DAZN. So to watch the fight, it'll be during the day. Obviously, usually their undercard starts around noon. Their main card starts around 2, 3 in the afternoon. Probably they'll come on around 5 at Eastern Standard Time. And you have to, if it's DAZN, you need to have streaming in order to view the fight.
Yeah.
What's interesting also, I should have mentioned this about Saudi Arabia, with all these fight cards that they've had and the 3 shows for Riyadh season, the one they already had and the 2 upcoming ones, no women's fights. Now they've had on a professional level, Ramla Ali fought there on an Eddie Hearn card, but that was with a skill challenge. And they do have a growing amateur women's program there. And they've had women's tournaments, and Rasha Al-Khamis is a vice president of the Saudi Arabia Boxing Federation, and she's active in a lot of different stuff. Although right now I think they're siding with IBA over World Boxing. But they've had women's boxing there, despite the very patriarchal laws that exist in that country. We'll see whether they, with this whole upsurge of all these cards, whether they put any women's fights on these other cards. I'm assuming December 23rd is pretty much filled with a card now, although they might add some local fighters really on the beginning on the undercard. But again, February 17th, there's only one fight announced, so we'll see whether they add some more on there.
Yeah.
But
I'm hoping they do.
As I said, who would have thought at the beginning of the year that we would say, as we get towards the end of this year, that the most powerful person in boxing in the world is Turki Al-Sheikh?
Yeah,
that's because he has the money, Eddie, and they're bowing down to him.
Money talks.
Money talks, and we have Showtime's leaving in the U.S. Who else is there? ESPN on streaming. They don't even put their male fights on their channels anymore.
They did, and they got piss poor ratings on Thursday in the Shakur Stevenson fight.
Oh yeah,
which they put opposite. They put opposite Thursday Night Football, talk about streaming, just on Amazon Prime, which got almost 13 million people watching. They had about 600 and something thousand people watching Shakur Stevenson, who they're building up as the next Muhammad Ali. So
the next Muhammad Ali.
The next great superstar.
I watched him fight. I didn't see anything that looked like. I mean, he could
said
fight,
they're building him up. They're building him up.
That was unfortunate. Yeah, it was technical.
Okay, I won't be so. Right. All right, my beautiful people. Anything else you guys want to cover before we close out this show?
Next weekend also will be the first Congress of World Boxing. I don't know if they're going to stream that. That will be taking place in Germany, and they will be having elections for president and all their different officers. It'll be interesting to see who shows up and how the elections turn out, and which federations are there as full members and vote. But that it's a step forward, getting that organization together.
That's right.
So
I'm pulling.
Hopefully it works, because certainly will then help the case for boxing in LA in 28. But we'll see.
Exactly.
It's critical. The clock is running.
Yep.
Tick,
so
tick, tick.
I think just check their website and check their social media, and they'll put up. They've been pretty transparent about things, and they should have the technology to stream at least, part of the Congress. But I'm not sure whether they're going to, what they're doing. Again, it's a fledgling organization, but I hope they get it together to put that up.
No, it's important. I really do hope they do that.
Right on.
Help build their own brand.
Exactly. Melissa, anything else you want to cover before we?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Say our goodbyes.
Good. Right. Just thank you all for, listening to us, and I'll put the pitch, push subscribe, push like.
Subscribe. That's right. Hit that like button.
Yes.
All right. But tell the people where they can find you.
Doing this.
Go ahead. I got to give my plug.
Yeah, you're gonna give your plug. So Melissa,
I'm
go first. Yeah.
I'm at Girl Boxing now. I'm increasingly on Threads. The Twitter stuff is just over the top for me, but I'm still there. At Girl Boxing now. I still do boxing on Twitter. My website is girlboxing.org, and just thank you so much, all of you, for your support.
Thank you. All right, Eddie, get your plug in.
Yeah, I'll start off with a plug for our friend Alva Johnson.
Hey, Alva!
Thursday nights does Vibe Architects, which is an hour-long show. It's 7 Eastern on Radio Free Brooklyn streaming. It's house music, which again is something that I'm very, very new to and not real familiar with, but I'm starting to find some interesting things to like. Monique Bingham, among some others in there. And she always gives us a plug, so go check that out. This coming Thursday is the holiday for some people, and I'm not sure if she'll be doing a live show or a pre-recorded show, whatever, but generally she's live in the studio in Brooklyn. Very cool. Go check that out. The Patreon article that I talked about earlier is on my Patreon site. You're getting independent journalism. When there's good, mention it in boxing. When there's bad, I'll mention it in boxing. You're not getting the propaganda, and you're not getting the fluffy, softball stuff. And so that's at patreon.com/Eddie Goldman. Subscribe to that. This is not getting any money from the networks or the promoters who are dwindling in the U.S., as we mentioned anyway. So you're going to get a fresh take and support independent journalism. And I'm still on Twitter at NHB News. Threads has been blocking any kind of political discussion for a lot of people. They've been closing down posts, which not inflammatory name calling type posts, but I know people, they just taken them down because they said it'll hurt people's feelings if you support the actors strike, which has now been settled, but when that was going on or something like that. So I
didn't see it personally, but okay.
I've had that people tell me that. So I've been on Blue Sky, but that seems to be like a cemetery, kind of dead.
Sky.
Not much. Yeah, not much going on, but I have like some invites for that, but people don't even seem interested in getting the invites for it. It's still invite only, and I don't know what's going to happen. It's all going to hell, but I think at some point or another, this imbecile is going to have to sell Twitter because he's just lost again. He lost already half of his advertisers, and now because of his anti-Semitic and racist posts, a lot of big advertisers, IBM, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Disney, Apple, Lionsgate, a whole bunch of these have said they're pausing their advertising. So they're not going to get revenue from all the gimmicks he has coming up. And if he decides to charge everybody to use it, that's the end of it. So I think this social media era is coming to an end. I don't see a really good alternative, and people will scatter to all these other different sites, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with it. So keep your email lists. Use what you got.
Go back to old school.
Yeah, eddiegoldman.com. Still using that.
Exactly. Well, folks, thank you guys for tuning in. You've listened to the top experts, my experts here at the WAAR Room. My beautiful co-host, Melissa Smith, thank you very much, and Eddie Goldman. Please support independent journalism because they are insightful. They keep you informed because, you know, I don't know shit about boxing like Floyd Mayweather's daddy said. So you guys check me out. I'm still on Shitter at Angry Afro Radio and on Instagram at Fight Goddess 1 on Threads, which I'm still digging Threads now. I haven't had any issues having post block. I've had somebody be an asshole responding to me. Other than that, I really haven't had any issues. Everybody seems to be real cool and chill there. So I'm gonna hang in there with Threads. We're gonna keep hanging in there with Threads. In the meantime, guys, like Melissa said, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications so you'll know next time we put up a video, and hopefully we don't get any more warnings from the YouTube people because, you know, we got a little strike on our channel. But you guys, thank you for supporting, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace, love, and push ups.